Hi guys, I'm Steven from Redshift Sports, and I'm here with Jim Manton, the founder of Aero Sports, which is a bike fitting and aero testing service based here in the LA Velodrome. So we've been testing the Switch Aero system here with Jim, and just wanted to give you the opportunity to kind of introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about Aero Sports and what you guys do here at the Velodrome.
Aerosport's primarily for bike fitting. That's what we do. Most of our bike fits are triathlon-specific fits, but we also sort of have exclusive access in North America to what's called the track Aero system from a company called Manton. And what that does is it measures your coefficient of drag in real time as you ride your bike. So whereas before we took athletes into the wind tunnel to measure coefficient of drag, now we can actually capture that while they ride their bike in real time. So it's sort of revolutionized aerodynamic testing in the industry.
And you've done a lot of testing in wind tunnels. So when you talk about doing testing here on the track versus in a wind tunnel, what are some of the biggest advantages that you see versus the kind of testing and the numbers that you would get in the wind tunnel versus in an actual riding situation?
So both are great for testing. They really are. It's just test differently. And one of the things when we used to take our athletes in the wind tunnels more that we would find is the numbers wouldn't necessarily translate outdoors for us. We'd get these really great drag numbers, and then when we went outdoors and expected certain time savings, we just weren't getting it, and it was hard to understand why.
Right.
And at the time, what we didn't understand was that the rider's interaction with the bike plays a really key role in their overall drag numbers. So we call that lean steer dynamic. So that your interaction with the bike, even just balancing your bike, we're constantly counter steering our bikes to stay balanced. And even though those movements are small, they're significant. So once we added that back into the equation, then all of a sudden the numbers made sense to us, and now we're able to predict half Ironman and Ironman times pretty close, because we know people's drag numbers, we know their power numbers, we know the course, we can predict the times. So.
That's great. In terms of bike fitting, you guys fit a lot of triathletes and also a lot of road riders. In fact, you're the fitter for the U.S. national track team.
We work with a lot of pro teams, a lot of pro cyclists, a lot of pro triathletes. We work with the national team with the U.S., fitting a lot of them. The Canadian team, same thing. We've worked with a lot of their riders. So, yeah, we're lucky in that sense. We have a blast with that. But our main focus is amateurs. That's what we do. Everybody gets the same treatment. Age groupers, pros alike, everybody gets the same fit.
Well, I'll ask you to brag a little bit and name drop perhaps some of the pros that people seeing this video may have heard of that have done testing here and gone on to great results afterwards.
Yeah, we've been super lucky and working with athletes like Craig Alexander and Julie Dibbins and Leanda Cave and Heather Jackson, Leslie Patterson, Luke McKenzie. The list kind of goes on and on and on. The athletes that we get to work with, and we have fun on the road side. That's a little more private on who we've worked with. That's
Sure.
Not necessarily public information,
Sure.
but we work with a lot of pros and their fits and their aerodynamic testing. And so the great thing about that is we learn a lot, and we can then apply that to our age group fittings, which really aren't that much different. Most people are far more capable than they give themselves credit for. So you'd be shocked at how many age groupers are in the exact same position as our pros.
And when it comes to doing a bike fitting for triathlon or for road, what are some of the things that you really focus on during the bike fits?
Well, the first thing you focus on is you realize that comfort equals power. So if someone is not comfortable on their bike, they cannot produce power for very long. That's just rule number one, is we need them comfortable. Now, it's not Cadillac comfort. It's an athletic type of comfort. I'm not sitting in a lazy boy.
Sure.
It's an athletic type of comfort, but it's still comfort. And if we don't have that, we've got nothing. And after that, it's all about what's optimal for the rider. So we don't want to put people in some sort of generic position that everybody should be in. It's what is optimal for that particular rider. So every rider is a puzzle we have to solve, and sometimes a half centimeter of adjustment can make all the difference in the world to a rider. And we know that, and that's why our fits take as long as they do. They're 3 hours long, because we're trying several different positions to see what works for that particular rider.
So this weekend we were actually here at the Velodrome testing the Switch Aero system, which is a product that you actually heard about a couple years ago when we launched it on Kickstarter.
That's right.
And you fit a couple people with the system here in your fitting studio.
Yes.
So as most of you probably know, the Switch Aero system is a dual position seat post and a set of quick release aero bars, and what they let you do is ride a forward aero position on your road bike. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the fit implications of the aero bars, of putting aero bars on a road bike, and also how the seat post and the movement of the seat affects the fit.
Well, I kind of always joke that about once a year, I get to the point where I think I'll never put another set of aero road bars or aero bars on a road bike ever again, because it just causes problems. It's never efficient. It's not biomechanically sound. You don't get skeletal support of your upper body. It just doesn't work. Every once in a while, there's a person it works for, but the overwhelming majority of people, they're reaching too far. It closes off their hip angle too much. It's just not good. So what people inevitably do is slide forward on their saddle, right on the tip of their saddle, in order to be able to create that reach and that proper skeletal support. And now they're uncomfortable on their saddle.
Sure.
Not only that, because they've slid forward, they have now shortened the length of their pedal stroke, and they've lost power. And so now they're just screwed up everywhere. And it's always been such a huge compromise that I just don't like doing it. When I saw the Switch Aero system, I didn't know you guys from anybody, but I saw what you did, and to me, not only getting someone forward so they can get into aero, that was brilliant, but then seeing that as you move the saddle forward, it's moving appropriately higher as well to maintain that proper knee angle at the bottom of the pedal stroke and allow that person to stay efficient. So not only are they able to move forward and get comfortable in their aero position, but they're also staying efficient. And before that, there's really nothing else that allows us to do that. So for me, for all the people that come in here and want to put aero bars on their road bikes, and me just going, no, I don't want to do that, that all of a sudden changes for me. And now I can do that for them, and I can have confidence and go, okay, this is biomechanically sound. This is comfortable for you. You can sustain this position. Let's do this, and it works great for us.
That's fantastic. So we were able to actually look at all the angles. You used the Retool motion capture system to measure the riders, a couple different riders, as they were pedaling in the different positions.
You bet. And the great thing was it worked exactly as we suspected it would. So when you go from a road position into an aero position without moving your seat forward, you're immediately, one, going to be reaching too far, and in so doing, as you reach too far, you're going to close down your hip angle. So all of a sudden you lose power, you can't produce as much power, and you're not comfortable. Now you're getting no support whatsoever. So we saw that the hip angle closed down. We saw that it forced you to be pulled forward on your bike to an uncomfortable position on the saddle, so we could watch a rider move forward. And we saw that there was just far too much reach, and the angle, the shoulder angle for reach was just far too extended, and it just didn't work. And so all of that confirmed exactly what we thought. As soon as we used the redshift system, person moved forward, and the first thing you notice is that their knee angle stays exactly the same. It doesn't change from their road position to that position. Even though they've moved 5 centimeters forward, their knee angle stays exactly the same. So that optimal knee angle that you found during the road fit is maintained in the aero position. For me, that's the huge part right there. I get to keep that rider optimal while maintaining comfort. Then, of course, the other thing we saw was now reach was appropriate. So the shoulder angle, now instead of being too stretched out, now it's back where it should be. It's providing skeletal support of the upper body, and that works great. The third thing that we see is because we're moving forward as we move lower, so we're really just rotating you forward and down, you're not closing off your hip angle, you're actually keeping it nice and wide open and well within the range of what we expect for an aero position. And so again, you don't lose the power you would otherwise lose. So it did exactly what, if we could make a list of things we wanted it to do, it did every one of those things.
Well, that's great. Great to hear, obviously.
Yeah, well, you're happy about that.
So after we got things dialed in the Fit Studio and took all those measurements, we took them out on the track to do some aerodynamic measurements. We looked at the aerodynamics of riding a road bike in a road position, riding a road bike in an aero position with a regular sort of road saddle position, and also riding a road bike with the Switch Aero system with the forward saddle position. Tell us a little bit about how those results came out and what sort of the aerodynamic effects were of riding in those different positions.
And again, this is the beauty of it is it worked exactly as we suspected. Certainly, we would expect to be more aerodynamic when we get into an aero position, and that's exactly what it allowed us to do. And it looks like, we're still crunching the numbers, but it looks like it's an average of 30 watt savings. That's a massive savings going from your road position down into an aero position. It's massive savings. And the feedback we got from riders, and we actually saw it during the aero testing, is when they just went into aero without moving the seat forward, yeah, it was nice and Aero, no problem. We got good Aero numbers, but they were uncomfortable. They fatigued, and we could watch them fatigue because as they fatigue, they get less stable on their bike, and their drag numbers start going up instead of staying nice and even. They actually start creeping up a little bit. And two, they started complaining of pain. You know, their back doesn't feel as good. Hamstrings are getting tight because they're being closed off and bent over, and so that's pulling on all these muscles. And so it's exactly what we had expected to see. And again, when you think about 30 watt savings, that is a massive, massive savings. You would have to train several years to gain 30 watts of power, and that's just free speed. It's sitting there waiting for people to come get it. And can you imagine in a hilly triathlon where you spend a lot of time on your tri-bike out of Aero because it's just too steep to climb in Aero, even though we want everybody to climb in Aero as much as possible. Some of these new triathlons, you can't do that. Well, now you can stay in this nice, efficient road position climbing, and then when you're on the flats or on the rollers, you just stay in Aero, and you can still get a good aerodynamic benefit out of that. And then it has the added benefit too, is when you're doing a screaming downhill, instead of having a ton of weight forward with your hands on the base bars or trying to stay in Aero and not being able to do that, you just get to flip back to your road position and be nice and comfortable and stable and safe. So certainly that's not the only application of it, but for any kind of hilly triathlon, to me, this is a no-brainer. You're going to be more efficient climbing in a road position than you are in a tri position, no matter what.
Right.
You're going to be more efficient.
Right.
So it's fantastic for that. There are several other applications, but that's going to work for us. Well, I think as we went through this process over the last couple of days, I think we all started to sort of realize there are other applications for this system that, we all initially just think triathlon, and turning your road bike into a semi-tri bike, which is great. I think for all of us, we think that's the primary application. But then we started thinking about, what about these road riders who do centuries and double centuries, these recreational riders who want to perform better or just want to save time and save energy? What a perfect system for them when they're when they're going through the century and they get into a nice flat area, they just move forward and into Aero. They're comfortable and they're going faster for the same effort. They're going faster. And then, okay, great, I'm climbing. Bam, I'm back into my regular position and I'm climbing. So there are other applications to this system that we have yet to discover, and I think the more we think about it, the more we're going to find out. Should be exciting.
Great. Well, Jim, thanks so much again for going through the bike fit process with us, getting us out here to do some Aero testing. It was a fantastic experience. Anybody who's looking to do bike fit or aerodynamic testing, if you're near Los Angeles, come check out Aero Sports, Jim Manton. They do a great job and they'll take care of you.
Thanks. It was a blast. We learned a lot.